cough that I had last week and the week before that, so I'm still just a bite sick. So hopefully this cough will go away in the next week, but who knows. We will begin with a pranayama to help ground us and get us ready for our practice. I don't know about you, but I need to focus on breathing for a little bit, so that's where we're going to start. So either sitting up or lying down, we'll begin with the 3-part breath, which helps us tune into our breath and get into some deep breathing. There are no contraindications. So we're breathing into the belly first, that's breath 1. And then breath 2 is into the belly and then into the ribs. So as we inhale, inhaling up. As we exhale, exhaling down. So begin breathing into the belly and then into the belly, into the ribs. As we exhale, exhaling from the ribs to the belly. So inhale, belly to ribs. Exhale, ribs to belly. For the final part, we'll be breathing into the belly, the ribs, and the chest, and exhaling from the chest to the ribs to the belly. So again, inhaling from the bottom up, exhaling from the top down. So it's okay if it feels a bit weird, or maybe you can't quite catch the rhythm of it. Don't worry about that, just focus on deep breathing. We're not trying to start off deep breathing from our bellies. We want to continue breathing normally. We're just changing the area or changing the focus of where we breathe, and we're really focusing on our tummies. So right palm comes to the belly, left palm comes to the chest, thumb and forefingers at the collarbones, and we'll start breathing into our bellies. Again, you can lie down if you prefer. What's up? And start here. So we're just feeling that bottom right palm floating up and down as we inhale and exhale, trying to focus our breathing on our bellies. So not quite lengthening, more turning our attention inward. Allowing ourselves to slow down. So gently lengthening that inhale to breathe into the belly and into the rib cage. Feeling almost as if you've got a rubber band wrapped around your low ribs, and you can feel it expand as you inhale, drawing in the breath, and you can feel it contract, hugging in as you exhale, sending the breath out. So inhaling into the belly, and then the low ribs. Trying not to feel that left hand rise too much as it sits on the chest. And then as you exhale, exhaling from the ribs to the belly. It's nice and gentle. Inhaling into the belly and low ribs, exhaling from the ribs to the low belly. It's okay if there's small natural movement within the chest and that left palm. We don't want to be restricting completely, but we've not quite drawn our focus all the way up yet. Finally lengthening that breath to breathe into the belly, the ribs, the chest. Exhaling from the chest, the ribs to the belly. So inhaling from bottom to top. Exhaling from top to bottom. Feeling each palm rise in turn and then fall in turn. It's okay if we end up with a couple of yawns here. Continue with the 3-part breath, but allow your palms to float down to your sides. And gently allow the breath to return to normal, maybe breathing a little more deeply and a little more full than before we began. Excuse me. Draw the left ear to the left shoulder. Right ear to right shoulder. Left ear to left shoulder. This time reaching the right fingertips out to the side. Gently deepening the stretch. Maybe lifting the chin just a little bit up toward the ceiling. Bring the right ear to the right shoulder. Reaching the left fingertips out to the side. Again, maybe lifting the chin just a little bit, turning up toward the ceiling. And bring the head back to center. Draw the chin to the chest. And gently sweep the chin back and forth, creating a smile across the collarbones. Bring the chin back to center on the chest, and we'll draw our ear toward our shoulder, but instead of lifting the head, we'll keep the head down and just turn the head, looking down at our shoulder. So left or right side, your choice. Again, you can reach out with the opposite fingertips toward the mat. Or even draw your wrist behind your back. And release. Bring the head back up to center. Draw the chin down to the chest once again. Same thing. We're drawing that ear to hover over the shoulder on the opposite side, gazing down toward our shoulder. And release, bringing your right palm down to the mat, sweep the left fingertips up and overhead. And then lift the head just a few inches, drawing your ear up. And instead of reaching the fingertips down toward the mat, reach them toward the corner, the sort of upper corner of the room. Almost as if someone is gently tugging on your fingertips. Float on up and over to the other side. Again, lifting the head just a few inches and reaching up toward that corner. And float back up to center. Bring the palms behind the hips, fingertips facing forward. We'll send our hips forward and up. And sink the hips down. If you were in simple pose as I was, go ahead and switch the feet. And press up once again. And settle the hips back down. Extend the right leg out to the side, drawing the left sole of the foot toward the thigh. We'll fold forward. And walk it up, turn toward the leg, and fold forward again. Palms coming to rest on the thigh or the shin or on either side. Gazing toward the big toe. And come up. Bring the palms behind the hips, lean back. Extend the opposite leg and draw the right leg in. Sitting them nice and tall and then folding forward. Come on up. Turn toward the leg. And again, palms coming to the thigh, the shin, or either side. Gazing toward the big toe. Folding forward. And sit up. Palms coming behind the hips. Extend both legs off to the same side. Drawing the toes up toward the ceiling for a flexed foot. Sitting up nice and tall. Maybe scooping the hands underneath the thighs and rolling the thighs inward just a little bit so that we can feel our sits bones better. Palms coming down to either sides of the legs, folding forward, coming into seated forward fold. So the goal here is not to touch the forehead to the legs by rounding the spine. Instead, it's to draw the belly button forward toward the thighs and keep the back nice and straight. If you get to a point and it feels all right to round the shoulders a bit, go ahead and do that, but try not to reach with the head. Instead, reach from the belly. So we're leading with the belly as we fold. Again, gazing toward the big toes. If you'd prefer, you could point your feet as well, pressing the balls of the foot away from you until the toes curl and reach forward. This engages a stretch to the tops of the feet and relieves a little bit of the hamstrings. And sit up, nice and tall. Bring the hands behind the hips, fingertips facing toward the feet. Draw the soles of the feet onto the mat, lifting the hips up toward the ceiling, reverse tabletop. Go ahead and rock just a little bit back and forth. And sink the hips down, cross at the ankles, roll forward over the ankles, or if you prefer, bringing one hand down to the side, draw the knees together, and then swing up to tabletop. Moving through a few cat-cow as we inhale, dropping the belly, lifting the chin, lifting the hips, creating a nice sway in the back for cow. And then rounding the spine, tucking the chin, tucking the hips as we exhale, just like a scared cat. So moving with your breath in your own time, finding your way between these two postures. Marjaryasana and Bitilasana. It's not Marjaryasana. Is it? What is it? Well, I've forgotten the Sanskrit. But Bitilasana is correct. One more full round, moving through both postures. Before sinking the hips to the heels, coming into Balasana, child's pose. So if you'd like to draw the toes together, knees as wide as the mat, walking the hands away from you. You can also stack the palms, drawing the forehead down. Or turning your cheek and bringing that down to the mat or your stacked palms. The choice is yours. Bring the palms back onto the mat. We'll create a twist by threading one arm through the opposite side. Coming down to that shoulder and that ear. For me, I'm coming down to my left side. My right hand can stay here if I'd like. I can also reach it forward or bringing my wrist toward my low back and then gently opening that shoulder toward the ceiling to gaze up. You can also move through any combination of those, whatever feels best for your practice today. We'll come back to center, press up and into the hands and move to the other side. So again, coming down to that shoulder, that ear, either taking the bind by bringing that wrist toward the low back, or allowing that palm to press in. And come back to center, pressing into the palms. Walk the palms forward, coming back into your child's pose once again. Maybe pressing the palms into the mat, allowing a small amount of activation across the shoulders. And walk it back up. Draw the knees together to one side, drop down onto the hip, and swing the legs around. Make your way onto your back. Drawing the soles of the feet onto the mat. Scoop the pelvis under. So we're trying to bring the top of our hip bones. You can find those with your first fingers or your fingers together. So feeling the hip bones. We want to tip our pelvis back. So maybe you've got a bit of space under your low back where, excuse me. So maybe you've got a bit of space under your low back where your hips are tipping forward. And so we want to melt our low back into the mat first. And this allows us to draw those hip bones closer to our rib cage. And then lifting the hips just an inch or so off of the mat to help release that lower back. Keeping that same energy of gently drawing the hip points toward the low rib cage. And then relax the glutes. So the glutes might want to squeeze to help hold us up, but go ahead and relax them. We want to just let our hips sort of dangle just above the mat. As we exhale, slowly rolling down one vertebra at a time, coming all the way back down to the mat. We'll lift our lower back up and off the mat, tipping our pelvis forward. So bringing our hips, those hip points, closer to our knees. So you can scoot down or sort of wiggle your way, creating a nice deep sway of the back. Almost like cow. And then we'll do the same thing. So slowly release, maybe scooting your shoulders back into position, allowing that low back to melt into the mat, feeling that pelvis scoop under, drawing those hip points towards the ribs, and then pressing into the mat with the feet. And then relaxing the glutes. And this allows us to take a small amount of pressure off of our low back and our hips. It's a very gentle release. And then we'll go ahead and soften the hips back down into the mat. Again, scooching the shoulders down the mat just a couple of inches, creating that sway, reaching those hip points toward the knees. And then as we exhale, relaxing that low back into the mat. Last time. This time we won't counter with that sort of back bend. So draw the hip points up toward the ribs, pressing the low back into the mat. Press the feet into the mat, lifting the hips just an inch or two, enough to sweep the hands just barely under the glutes. And then try and soften the glutes. You can also walk your feet just a little bit closer together, or knock the knees together if that feels like it can help. And then we're going to take that hip, I'm going to take that left hip and reach it down toward our foot. And that right hip comes up closer to our ribs, creating a slight bend in the hip or in the waist. And then we'll move that right hip down, Crunching just a little bit on the left side. It's okay if the hips tip. We're just creating this sort of extension on one side. And then move them back to center. Draw the hip points closer to the rib cage. And then relax the glutes. And slowly float those hips back down to the mat. Allow the knees to knock together. And then scoot the feet as wide as the mat. And reconnect with your breath. Bring the knees back apart, heel toe the feet so that they're about parallel and hip distance apart. Draw the left knee into the chest, give it a good squeeze. Release the left leg, draw the right leg in. Again, squeezing it toward the chest. Nice and easy. You can step your left leg a little out if it's too much pressure on the knee there. And release the right knee. Bring the left knee back into the chest. Interlace the fingers behind the thigh and extend the toes up toward the ceiling. So flex the foot or point the foot, the choice is yours, or simply relax the foot, that's also an option. And you can extend or keep that leg bent. Or, as always, you can move through two postures. Whether that's flexing and pointing the foot, or extending and bending the leg. Relax that foot back to the mat, draw the opposite knee in, interlacing the hands behind the thigh, and again lifting the heel up toward the ceiling. Again, moving through two postures if you'd like, flexing and pointing the feet, or foot rather. Or extending and bending the leg. Relax that foot back down to the mat. Draw the soles of the feet together. Supta Baddha Konasana. Recline, bound angle. Palms out to the sides, or on the belly, or one hand on the belly and the other on the chest. Draw the left knee to meet the right, creating a spinal twist, supine twist here. You can always adjust the hips, scooting them more toward the midline if you need to. Gazing up toward the ceiling or away from the knees. Bring the head back to center and draw the knees up and over to the opposite side. Bring the head back to center, draw the knees back to center. Allow the knees to float into the chest. Bring the palms on top of the knees. And gently moving the knees in a circle. And switch directions. Bring the knees to the bottom of that circle so that the feet are hovering just above the mat and the fingertips are just digging in just a little bit to keep the feet from floating all the way down to the mat. Release, floating the feet back down to the mat, transitioning into Shavasana, our longest held posture. If you would like to put your socks back on or grab any props that you may need, go ahead and do so. Now also grab a sip of water if you'd like. Sinking into your Shavasana posture, whether that's on your back, belly, or side, or simply sitting up to meditate. Drawing the eyes closed, or simply finding your drishti. Softening the toes, softening the ankles. Soften the calves. Soften the thighs and the hips. Softening the belly and releasing the breath. Soften the hands and the fingers. Soften the arms from wrist to shoulder. Soften the chest. Maybe swallow to soften the throat. Softening the jaw and the tongue. Soften the ears. Soften the forehead. Softening the whole body, heavy into the mat. Take this time to simply exist. Slowly come back into your body by wiggling your fingers and wiggling your toes. Gently moving the ankles from left to right. Maybe rolling the wrists around in a circle. Slowly shake the head no. On your next inhale, stretch your fingertips high above your head, stretching from fingertip to toe. And as you exhale, maybe rolling onto your side, curling into a ball. Thank yourself for stepping onto your yoga mat today. And when you're ready, bringing your top palm onto the mat in front of your chest, extend your top leg and gently draw yourself up into a seated position. If you still have the eyes closed, as I do, bring the palms up to cover the eyes. Slowly fluttering the eyes open into the dimness of your palms. Bring the palms down to heart center. And as you move forward into the week and the weekend, please take this practice as a gentle reminder that sometimes, even though our brains happen to be moving a mile a minute, slowing down our bodies might help us slow down our brains. Bow the head if you would like. The light in me sees and respects the light in you. Thank you so much for joining me for practice today. Have a good morning, noon, or night, wherever you happen to be. And before I get any questions about the chicken, this is like a rice bag. There's lavender in here as well. It's called a warmie, and you can put it in the microwave and it'll warm up. And so you can use it to, keep your feet warm, or to put on a body part, or just because you want something warm and delightful to hold. And so in yoga, we sometimes use sandbags to put over the eyes for Shavasana. It helps us, or onto the belly, it helps us draw attention to that spot on the body because it's a small amount of weight, and so it brings the attention or awareness to that part of the body. It's also just comforting to have something just a slightly weighted over the eyes, and I think this chicken is about like 1.5 pounds or something, so it's a bit hefty. But if you have rice packs already, you can use them during Shavasana just to help give yourself a bit of added comfort. So yeah, that's what the chicken is for. It was kind of an impromptu move on my part because it happened to be sitting on top of the marshmallow.